Well, hello, IDS 104 students, and welcome to week 5, module 5 in your IDS 104 course. This week, we are going to be talking about fact or fiction, how to navigate information and make smart choices here in your IDS 104 course. First and foremost, your experience here at Southern New Hampshire University is important to us. It's our policy and practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If there are aspects of instruction or course design that present barriers to accessibility, please notify the Online Accessibility Center, the OAC, as soon as possible. You can reach them by phone at 866-305-9430. You can also email them at oac@snhu.edu or visit the Online Accessibility Center website. Couple of webinar reminders. These webinars and SNHU Connect, your Brightspace learning environment, and also any of the first year experience YouTube channels, basically anything SNHU affiliated, are always considered academic spaces. So be mindful of your conduct. These learning community webinars are not graded or required, but hopefully they're helping you learn about how to do assignments from week to week, and or we talk about those concepts that you're working on your course. So hopefully they help make a little bit of sense. These webinars, of course, are offered in an on-demand format, which is pre-recorded, means they're ready to roll bright and early on every Monday of the new week or the new module. And if we do have any live sessions, those are always recorded. And then those are available within 24 hours of the live session ending. You can always find the Learning Community webinar links on that first year experience YouTube pages for IDS 104, or you can find them in the IDS 104 Learning Community. Still can't find them, check in with your faculty and they'll get you the links and the information that you need. So, y'all, week 5. You are now officially past the halfway point and heading into the last few weeks, the last half of your IDS 104 course. Y'all, it's going to go fast, so buckle up. If for some reason you have fallen behind in your class or struggled on assignments, this is the time to reach out to your instructor, see if you could potentially still turn assignments in or catch up in a course. They can always say no, but I like to tell students that some points are better than no points. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about all things week 5. We're going to talk about defining information literacy and understanding its role in decision making. We're going to talk about how to identify value systems and understand how they can influence decisions. We're going to take a little bit of a look at ourselves and recognize any bias we might have in ourselves and also in sources of information. We're also going to talk about strategies to help navigate different types of information, that misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation. And then we're going to do a week 5 assignment overview. So we got a lot of things to talk about. One of the other things I wanted to make sure is that I stopped for a moment and checked in with y'all. So as a reminder, you guys hear me say this every single week, but it is so important that you are consistently and constantly reviewing those course announcements that your faculty put together. They provide helpful tips, tricks, reminders about the concepts you're covering and the assignment. So make sure you're checking those. A lot of times students miss points because they simply didn't know what they were doing or how to do something, and all the information was in the course announcements. Also, don't forget to check those grades, know where your grade stands, know if you're missing any assignments. And like I said earlier, if you are stuck, struggling, falling behind, this is the time to reach out to your instructor and say, hey, life has happened. I would like to get caught up. What can I do? Okay. Please also know too that you can check in with those SNHU resources to help you with progressing in your courses. Connect with your faculty if you're stuck, y'all. Please don't be nervous to reach out to us. It's so important that you reach out to your instructor because they're the ones that can see your grades and they're the ones that can work with you if they're willing to take assignments. Again, some points are better than no points. And take a minute and just reflect on like what's working and what might need adjustment. So if you're doing really great on getting your assignments in on time, but maybe you're struggling with something with your assignments, is there a resource you can utilize or reach out to get to be better in those areas? You know, the biggest line is don't forget to use those SNHU resources. There's a lot of support from those teams. I have a quick little snapshot of some of those SNHU resources, from the tutoring team and academic support to using written feedback and academic support. You always have the learning community webinars, but there's so much more. The library has wonderful citation resources for MLA and APA. Remember, here in IDS 104, if you're citing sources, it is typically that APA format. But there's also access to SNHU Connect, our amazing IT help desk, and then you have SNHU Wellness too. And then outside of class, who's helping support your success? Tell them a big thank you because them supporting you is really helpful too. So Just to kind of back up a little bit, we've talked a lot this term about information literacy, right? So just a quick recap of like what it is. So information literacy is all about the ability to recognize when information is needed and how to find it, evaluate it, and use it effectively and responsibly, okay? So information literacy really allows us to be lifelong learners, to educate ourselves, learn new things, right? But it also helps us really make those informed decisions in our personal, academic, and professional lives because it encourages that critical thinking. So it allows us to understand we have all this information coming at us, like what is true, what isn't, what do we believe, how do we go from here? That way we can always be learning, right? So becoming information literate, I always like to remind you of just kind of some of those tips for like how we do this. And first and foremost, when we are reviewing anything in our digital world, we want to make sure we're checking the source, right? Is it trustworthy? Is it balanced? Is it credible? We want to make sure that we seek those diverse viewpoints because one perspective rarely tells the whole story. So it's good to see the whole side of every story and every situation. Use research strategies. Y'all, we have the convenience of the interwebs at our fingertips, right? But it's so important for us to be able to ask those clear questions, organize information, take notes, and like really do our own homework so you can form your own educated thought and opinion, right? Of course, learning how to think critically is so important on becoming information literate. You know, like what does the message say? Does it rely on facts? Does it rely on emotion? Like, what is this really saying? Understand your own perspective. Do you have any bias in yourself or your thoughts? Or maybe you had experience with this situation, and so you're not able to like really ascertain, like, is this really what this article is saying? Or is this really true and accurate, right? And trust your thinking. You know, use your judgment to make informed decisions because you have ways to make sure that you're not reacting to something based on emotion, right? So understanding bias, I always like to just kind of point this out that we constantly have, you know, all this information coming at us, right? So a lot of times we have news, which is supposed to be facts, right, coming at us, and then often we have opinion, which should be something that is like commentary or interpretation of something. In today's world, they're kind of all intermingled together, right? So we really need to understand what the information we are looking at or seeking says, what we want it to do, think about information we already have, but also being able to recognize in ourselves where we need to maybe do our own research and our own thinking and explore multiple perspectives to make sure that we just know the right information, okay? One of the things you're going to learn a lot about this week too is the different types of information that are out there, right? So with information, we know that not everything is always accurate, correct? Sometimes there is bad intent that is out there with different information that comes up. So I want to just go over the quick types of information quick. Misinformation is that false or incomplete information shared without bad intent. You know, I always like to think of this like if you are like at the school system, my kiddo's school system, we have an amazing PTO group that does a lot for this school. And sometimes their meetings get communicated out, dates and times. Sometimes they're wrong. It wasn't that that was like bad intent. It just was a mistake, right? So information, that's a very generic example, but information can be put out there that's not necessarily accurate, right? It happens. Somebody didn't check the details, somebody didn't check the sources, right? And then we have that disinformation. That is where information is put out there that is deliberately false. And it's information that is intended to mislead, okay? Malinformation is when you have true information presented, but it's done misleadingly. So maybe it's out of context or there's key details missing. Like it's just not sharing the whole picture. And why it's important to know about the different types of information is because it helps us make better informed decisions. Okay. So as y'all know, because I've said it a couple of times today, we have information coming at us 24/7. Our phones beep. There's, you know, we see things online. We might watch TV. We're listening to podcasts. There's social media. There's YouTube. You're in an online college, so you're seeing information. You know, you go to look up something and there's ads that come across the screen. You're watching something on TV and there's ads that scroll across that, right? So a lot of 24/7 media can really sway our feelings and thoughts because we saw it on TV. Is it true, right? We always tell our kids, don't believe everything you read on the internet, right? It's a reminder for us all because we are consistently bombarded by information, which can reinforce existing beliefs, but it can also sway our feelings and thoughts. So it's really important when we see things and see information just stop for a second. Yes, we want to be curious and research things and look up things, but ask questions, compare those different perspectives, compare those multiple sources. Know if what you are going to repeat or talk about is accurate and your own educated feelings about it, okay? We have talked a lot this term about mindset, right? That growth mindset versus that fixed mindset. I love this quote by Brené Brown. Owning our story and loving ourselves through that process is the bravest thing that we'll ever do. We learn a lot by making mistakes, right? We don't want to make them, but we always learn from them. So just a reminder, because we're going to be talking more about those growth and fixed mindsets again this week. Growth mindset, that belief that abilities can be developed through effort, learning, and persistence. Fixed mindset, belief that nothing's going to change, right? Why does feedback matter? Feedback from others gives us guidance on strengths and areas for growth. It can encourage our improvement and continuous learning, and it can help us reframe mistakes as opportunities. So just a refresher on those mindsets because they come into play in your week 5 assignment. So week 5 assignments, I'm going to share my screen real quick just to show them to you, but you do have a discussion assignment this week. As a reminder, initial discussion post is due by Thursday, with responding to at least 2 of your classmates by Sunday or before as convenient for your schedule. Y'all, remember, initial post due by Thursday or before, right? You have to respond to at least 2 of your classmates. If you don't respond to 2 classmates, you don't respond to anybody, it cuts that grade in half. It costs major points. If you respond to 1, it costs points. Respond to 2. And don't just write a sentence or 2. It's not going to cut it, y'all. It's not going to cut it. You need to have a substantial response when you're responding to those classmates, okay? Draft assignment, you have your next part of your draft assignment. You did one of those back in week 3, module 3. Now you're going to move on to the next section. Okay, use the same template that you used in week 3, whether it was the PowerPoint or the Microsoft Word document, use the same one as you complete the next section. And as a reminder, you get Office 365 for free. Just a quick little blurb reminder about how to find these recordings and webinars for your success. But I wanted to take a minute and I wanted to share my screen with you just really quick. So module 5, as a reminder, y'all, when you click on help and online student services, when you scroll down a little bit, that is where you will see that Office 365 that you get for free. If for some reason you do not have that yet, scroll down. It's right there. Follow the blue, click the blue, gets you where you want to go. Follow the prompts and you'll be all set, okay? So again, as a reminder for this week, for Module 5, you have that discussion assignment. So the discussion assignment this week is right here. You are going to be addressing the following: a recent decision that you or somebody else made. What information was used to make that decision, and information literacy strategies did you use to determine if it was credible or relevant? And then the next question, what personal, cultural, or societal values were at play in that decision, and how did these values influence the outcome? Okay, remember, y'all, up here, you have that Module 5 overview, but you also have, whoops, let me go back here real quick. When you go into that Module 5 overview, there's a ton of information within your module that'll help you answer the questions for your assignments, because we didn't cover it all today, but we covered some of the basics. Okay, so remember, you have a lot of reading actually within your module. And then of course, too, you have chapters and videos outlined in this required resources. There's some great videos this week that are quick, easy ways to really talk and understand the concepts of values. Okay, so there's some great videos that are out there. So make sure that you review those for your success. Again, you have that discussion assignment. You're going to answer those initial prompt questions right here. And then you want to make sure that you respond to at least 2 of your classmates, right? That is a big deal. Don't forget that. Every time somebody misses it, I'm like, oh, you just cut your grade in half. So make sure that you're getting those peer responses and initial posts done. Initial post due by Thursday, peer responses, minimum of 2, due by Sunday or before is convenient for your schedule. Okay, project draft. So let's look at that project draft assignment again. Remember, back in week 3, you either used a Microsoft Word document or you used the PowerPoint document. Whatever you used last time, open that same document back up and work on the part 2 section, which is all about growth mindset. So you are answering these following 5 questions, and they have multiple pieces and parts, okay? So for example, question 1, explain how growth mindset shapes how you respond to challenges or barriers. How you respond, y'all, your thoughts. Include the following. So what does growth mindset mean to you? And then You want to share, like, why does having a growth mindset yourself, why is that important when responding to a challenge or barrier? Okay, use examples, use details. You're going to follow those same things all the way through all 5 questions. Okay, as a reminder, that Word document looks like this. Now, again, you do not have the highlights. However, you already answered part 1. So you are answering part 2. I highlighted it in green. When you open it up, you're not going to see the highlights, but I just wanted to show you you're only answering this week by Sunday for week 5, module 5, the questions for part 2. If you utilize the PowerPoint, you would have filled out everything for part 1, and you will go to the section that is part 2. I always like to tell students, if you chose to use the PowerPoint, of course you can provide all the text and information, but if you want to make it fun with pictures and stuff too, that's totally fine. Just keep it relevant and to the topic at hand. Remember, y'all, this is about your thoughts. So connect the course concepts and what you're learning to your own experiences and your own beliefs and behaviors, okay? Use examples, be detailed, and remember, with that project draft, you're only doing that next section, part 2, okay? All right, y'all, that's it. If you have questions, my email is right here, shop, SCHOPP at snhu.edu. Or you can always come and find me in the IDS 104 learning community. But remember, if you have questions about your grades, assignments, get with your instructor because they are the ones that are grading you. Have an amazing week 5, y'all, and I'll see you in week 6.